Where did Rajavidya go? You had some questions?
Yeah.
And yesterday we answered them, but it wasn't recorded. So if you have any questions, we can answer them before we start today's program. Okay?
From these questions I had, I could hear them.
Yeah, right. It wasn't recorded. So I didn't bring my phone with the questions. Do you remember what they were?
Yeah, I have.
You have them? Okay.
Should I ask?
Yeah, we'll just go through that before we go on, because this is a whole new chapter, a whole new section that we're beginning. It's going to take a few days, and it's not in relation to your questions, so I thought we would finish that up first and then start.
This, in one class we were discussing about that Grhasthas.
Yes.
Prabhupada wanted that Grhastha should be business of paraphernalia, and then that's how they should maintain.
Right.
But at the same time, Prabhupada didn't want that Grhastha should stay in Vrindavan. So
He wanted them to be both dependent and independent of the temple. He said to make one man, one person, a devotee, takes so much endeavor, and then after they become grihastas, if they are aloof from the temple, it's as if they're lost. So he wanted either that they live in the temple separately, or they live near the temple and take part in the temple services. He was not in favor of the grihastas doing the deity worship, because he gave the example of the Goswami temples, the Gosais, that although Jiva Goswami was brahmachari and Gopal Bhatta Goswami, they were both brahmacharis, but they appointed their grihasta disciples to do the deity worship, and later that deteriorated into grihastas, or Gosais as they call themselves, worshipping making a show of worshipping, but whatever donations would come in would be used. They would sell the land, they would just give the white balls, the chinordi, as prasadam. He was saying that this was just a farce, and whenever donations came into the temple, they would use that money for the family maintenance. So he favored having brahmacharis as pujaris, and the grihastas, he suggested that since they're here, he never wanted them to go away unless they couldn't give up sense gratification. He suggested they could go to Mayapur to live in the city there that was going to be built, or if they stay here, they could engage in these business enterprises that Prabhupada was recommending. One of them was to sell the deity paraphernalia and all of the things that devotees were buying in Loy Bazaar, dhotis, kartals, tilak, all the things that the temples needed. The grihastas could set up shops, because that's why Prabhupada built those shops in the front of the Gurukula building for that purpose. Or they could engage in this new business enterprise that Prabhupada described, which was making of the deities, the deity dolls, and selling them. There was also the deity dressmaking. There were a lot of options for grihastas to do service, and the grihastas actually did all of this. There was the snack bar, there was the deity dresses for the temples around the world, there were the shops. So he didn't want to drive the grihastas away. He wanted the grihastas to be engaged in temple service so that they could honestly, through the business and through the preaching, be engaged in the temple service and at the same time maintain their families. Does that make sense to you?
yeah.
He called it simultaneously dependent and independent.
Like now present scenario, it's not like we don't support the system of the lower temples. It's not that I'm just like a just like a Prabhupada wanted that the shops, that's what given in the previous times, and then there was a problem.
Yes.
That they didn't want to give back, and there was a lot of I was here also.
Right.
So now we are not supporting this system something.
You could be doing business for the temple. You're here, you're living here with your family, you're getting some allowance from the temple. So the system is working for your family. No one's telling you to go away, right? You're being encouraged to take part in the temple programs, right? So
Temple is fully supporting you.
yes, right. So through another avenue, you're being both independent and dependent, as Prabhupada recommended. And then afterwards, actually it was in 1975, Prabhupada described to Dhananjaya how he actually wanted a Grhastha ashram here. And Dhananjaya asked him, he had no idea what the concept was that Prabhupada had, so he asked him where should it be, and Prabhupada told him it should be somewhere behind the temple. And what should it look like? There should be a lot of greenery, there should be apartments, there should be gardens, there should be a playground for the children. So by 1988, which was long after Prabhupada left, we had the opportunity to purchase the Dalmia Koti land and make the Mayapur Vrindavan Trust the Bhaktivedanta Ashram, which is now the MT, with 70 apartments and a guest house and a restaurant and gardens and a playground. And also Prabhupada wanted a Vanaprastha ashram. So Dhananjaya asked Prabhupada, where should that be? Should that also be right behind the temple? He said, no, that could be in the vicinity, but a little distance. And he said it should be the same concept as the Grihastha ashram, but no playground, because there wouldn't be children. So Prabhupada wanted both of those ashrams to be here within the temple vicinity. Okay?
And this, in one class we were discussing, and this point has been discussed in temple also a few times. Even Gopal Maharaj wrote also about this thing. The hearing from outside.
Right.
I also personally very much don't like that.
It was strictly forbidden by Srila Prabhupada.
And even letters were like we
Yes. Many letters and many lectures also.
But still they like nothing like when somebody is going to hear outside.
Then they're disobeying Srila Prabhupada.
Then we say that you should give class, or Prabhupada say you should give class.
Yes, he said he wrote that to Nitai, because Nitai was going to hear outside, so he said if you're not satisfied with the caliber of the classes being given in the temple, then you give the classes.
So I could not understand the principle, like the person who is going to hear outside, maybe is, so why we are telling him to give us?
Because the claim is that they don't like the caliber of the classes.
Yes,
so Prabhupada says, well, if you don't like the caliber, then you give the classes to the caliber that you feel it should be.
And sometimes, like, because I was in this also, let us say, management and the classes we used to give, and if, let us say, if we give that type of person class, but definitely we will speak about Prabhupada, like out of track or out of Prabhupada mood, because that's why he is going outside, he is not getting what.
No, when we give classes in the temple, we speak from Srila Prabhupada's books. And if we don't speak from Srila Prabhupada's books, at the question-answer time, people challenge what's being said. That goes on whenever anyone gives classes. If they quote too much from Time magazine, or if they start quoting Babaji's and other types of philosophies that Srila Prabhupada hasn't authorized, then it's questioned.
So means to say, like, how we can speak, tell them to give class? Because you will speak definitely, like I believe the Mataji, they also believe in this. If I will give that person who is hearing outside, he will speak what Prabhupada didn't.
No, meaning Prabhupada meant that you give the classes because Nitai, who was the person he wrote that to, He was Prabhupada's, he was in the Sanskrit department, he was Prabhupada's secretary, doing transcriptions. He knew Prabhupada's books very well. So he was a scholar. So he was perfectly qualified to give classes from Srila Prabhupada's books. But the problem was that Nitai was going outside and hearing and getting contaminated. So Prabhupada, and after that he didn't give classes, he ran away. So
what is the most dangerous things happen with this type of person who are hearing outside and they are initiated in ISKCON and still they go outside? And what's the
it's one of the 10 nama aparads, Guru Avagya. If the Guru gives, not only is it nama aparad, it's also dhamma aparad. And it's also Guru aparad. So you're committing 3 types of maha aparads at the same time. If Guru gives an instruction and you don't follow it, first of all, your chanting then becomes null and void, because you're committing nama aparad. Second of all, your residence in the Dham becomes, you're offending the Dham because you're disobeying your spiritual master, and that's one of the Dhamma aparads. So then you won't last long in the Dham. And third, you're offending your Guru, which means your whole spiritual life is in danger. So we each personally make that choice. We know it's wrong, and if we do it anyway, so what is that called? It's called kam, it's called pap, it's so many things in the Bhagavad Gita, the simplest thing. What is it that forces us to do things that we know are wrong? So what does Krishna tell Arjuna? Is lust only, right? So Prabhupada says that this desire to go outside and to hear about the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna, it is simply a manifestation of material sex desire. When people, they try to understand things that they're not on the platform of understanding, then it's a manifestation of lusty desires. Okay?
Just it's like Yamuna Mataji and her husband worked so hard here, and at the right time when the temple was going to open, they went. So
Guru Das came back for the grand opening.
Okay.
Yes.
So Prabhupada was like sometime discussing about them or talking about.
Well, he was always very grateful for the service that they performed, always. He was disappointed at the Janmashtami, what was supposed to have been the grand opening, but within an hour that was resolved that we would, he would extend 8 more months. There was a lack of communication, and I won't get into details why that happened, but Prabhupada was again and again writing that everyone had to cooperate here, and there was a lack of cooperation, and therefore there was a lack of communication, and therefore Surabh knew that it couldn't be ready by Janmashtami. But Guru Das was still assuring Prabhupada that it would be ready, because Guru Das, Surabh was a very new devotee, and Guru Das had been with Srila Prabhupada since 1967. He didn't want to disappoint Prabhupada. So some way or other, he personally believed that it was possible to open the temple. But Surabh, as the construction in charge, he knew that it wasn't ready. So it was a difference of conception of the temple. And even Prabhupada tried, he said, we can open at one section, is it possible? But the final conclusion was, and it was, finally he asked Jamuna's opinion. What is your opinion? And she said, well, I'm not qualified to speak, but in my opinion, we don't have any temple devotees. So I don't see how it's possible for us to open the temple at this time. We don't have any pujaris. So when Prabhupada heard that, he made the final decision. All right, then we won't open the temple now. Then he consulted, they were all in the room together, in this room together. He asked Saurabh, so how, you tell me now, how long will it actually take you to complete the construction? He said 6 months. He said, no, actually it'll take 7 months. So then Prabhupada checked the calendar, and he said, well, in 8 months is Ram Navami, so we will set the date of the grand opening for Ram Navami. So that was, it took 1 hour for all of that to be resolved. That's all.
Can I ask last about Gurukul? You were discussing, I think, yesterday, or yesterday.
What was the
Prabhupada
question?
Gurukul. Prabhupada was teaching, like, he was saying that Sanskrit, English and maths,
Yes,
it should be taught in Gurukul.
yes.
And because I was serving in Gurukul for one time. So, is that only Prabhupada wanted, or like now we are running Gurukul? Or
No, what's being run now is not the way Prabhupada wanted the Gurukul at all. You can read all the, if you just take time to read all of Prabhupada's instructions here about the Gurukula, you'll understand. He didn't want any affiliation whatsoever. Nothing, no affiliation whatsoever. He said as soon as you get any type of affiliation, they'll tell you you have to feed them eggs, they have to have a certain amount of flesh, otherwise their health will deteriorate. Then they insist, and it's true, they insist later on they have to have the different streams, you know, they have to have different subjects. Prabhupada didn't want any of that. He wanted the Gurukul strictly to train these boys to be Brahmins, to be Krishna conscious. And he gave so many instructions for that. So there's a whole chapter in this book on the Bhaktivedanta Swami Gurukula. You can read it. I can read it to you, but you might as well read it yourself if you really want the answer to that question. Okay. This isn't, we're not being prejudiced. We're just reading what Prabhupada wanted and seeing if where the Gurukul now is the way Prabhupada described it. That's all. And you can make that judgment yourself after you read Prabhupada's instructions. Okay? Okay. So now we'll begin with the 1977 Leela of Srila Prabhupada. We discussed yesterday that Prabhupada's health was deteriorating, and all the devotees were waiting for him to come here for the 1977 Mayapur Vrindavan festival, the Vrindavan leg of the festival. And then we received the message that Prabhupada wasn't well enough to come here. So Guru Das was heading the festival here. He was then a sannyasi, Guru Das Swami, and he was taking devotees out on parikrama each day, and he had arranged seminar programs for the devotees because he felt that they would come here and just gossip, you know, because they didn't have any other activities when there wasn't parikrama going on. So he arranged seminars with senior devotees. So every day there would be special classes, special training groups, different crafts, and different aspects of Krishna consciousness, so that all the worldwide devotees could get together and share their knowledge. So that was very successful. Then after the festival, Prabhupada, one of our life members had a room, he had a house in Rishikesh. It was May by that time, and the devotees, Tamal Krishna Maharaj had become his secretary, and a new devotee in Mayapur, I don't know what his first initiated name was it Kirchor Gopinath? Bhakti Charaswami? Kirchor? I forget what his, something like that, yeah. So he had become Prabhupada's Indian Affairs Secretary, and he also became Prabhupada's cook and just about everything Prabhupada needed, working under Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So with a small group of devotees, Prabhupada went to stay for 10 days at the home on the Ganga, the Ganga Tat in Rishikesh, hoping that the clean air and the Ganga and the the lack of the extreme heat would improve Prabhupada's health. But in Rishikesh there are strong winds at night coming from the Himalayas, and Prabhupada's health actually deteriorated at that time. So one night, in the middle of the night, Prabhupada called Bhakticharu Swami. He was still a brahmachari, and he told him that he was ready to go back to Godhead, and he wanted to do that in Vrindavan. So he wanted to immediately return to Vrindavan. He felt that Prabhupada felt that his time had come. So they packed up everything that night. The next morning they left Rishikesh, and it's a long trip. It's about a 9-hour trip in those days. So they broke up the trip. They came to the Delhi temple. They stayed in the Delhi temple for that night, and then they proceeded on to Vrindavan. Now the Vrindavan devotees weren't expecting Prabhupada to come, but when they got word that he was coming, Gunarnava took a motorcycle, he got somebody's motorcycle, he drove up to NH2 waiting for Prabhupada. When they saw the car coming, then he drove right down, got all the devotees ready, whatever devotees were here at that time in the middle of the summer, and everyone was just so ecstatic that Prabhupada was coming like this in the middle of the summer, which was very unusual. Prabhupada was usually out preaching worldwide at this time. So Prabhupada walked into his room here, and he was sitting on his ashan, and all the devotees had such a nice kirtan. They were so happy to have Prabhupada with them. And then Prabhupada begins speaking, and he explains to the devotees that one should not be depressed, because we know from the Bhagavad Gita, Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram ovanam. Who knows the verse? So Prabhupada began preaching from that verse, and he also gave a quote from Chanakya Pandit that if one does something glorious in their life, then they live forever. So Prabhupada announced publicly at that time to all the devotees that he had come here to leave his body. So all of their ecstasy turned into agony. They just couldn't believe it. They were crying. They couldn't understand. They had no idea that Prabhupada was in such a weakened condition. And then everyone left the room, and Bhakticharu Swami was in the room with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada told him that now he would prepare to leave his body as Parikshit Maharaj had done. Do not cook for me, and do not try to force me to eat. I have no appetite. So when the word went out, because naturally they informed, Prabhupada wanted all the GBCs to come and be with him. So they started arriving immediately. And they had a meeting, and in the meeting they went to Prabhupada. They decided they would go to Prabhupada and beg him. They said that we are little children, and if you leave us, we'll be orphans. We're not ready to guide the whole society without you. So we're begging you to please stay, and that means please eat something. So then Prabhupada conceded. He saw that they very sincerely wanted him to stay, so he agreed to start eating again. The first thing he ate was someone had brought from America some strawberries. So he ate some strawberries. He asked, what is the value of eating these strawberries? And Tejas said, well, they're carbohydrates, they'll give you energy, they'll give, like that. So everyone was very happy that Prabhupada now decided to eat and to try to get better. So then Prabhupada, he again called Bhakticharu and asked him to go to, he asked him if he knew where, and this is the first time he was ever in Vrindavan. He was a brand new bhakta, a brand new devotee. He had just joined in 76, got double initiation, and then Prabhupada had called him, to travel with him now. So Prabhupada asked him, do you know where Gopinath Bazaar is? they would all speak in Bengali, you know. So he didn't know where it was, but he said he would find out, you know, because he wanted every opportunity possible to do everything he could for Prabhupada. So it wasn't hard for him to find out where Gopinath Bazaar was. And in Gopinath Bazaar was a Kaviraj that Prabhupada used to consult. His name was Banamali Kaviraj. And he was older than Prabhupada. Excellent Kaviraj. So Bhakti-Chara found his little, just tiny little clinic he had right on the corner at Gopinath Bazaar. And he explained the condition of Prabhupada. And Banamali said, yes, I can treat him, you have to bring him here. And Bhakti-Chara said, it's impossible, he's much too weak, he can't come. And finally he convinced him to come on the rickshaw with him, but he saw that the roads were so bad in those days. He was older than Prabhupada. It just wasn't going to work, that he would have to go and see Prabhupada all the time. And Banamali, after he saw Prabhupada, he immediately wanted to start making the medicines for Prabhupada. But he said, it's just not going to be possible because I have to pick the herbs and grind them to make the juice and add the different ingredients. So then Bhakti-Chara said, well, teach me how to do it and I'll do it. So he started making the medicines for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada started improving. And what the procedure was going to be was that Banamali was going to continue giving these medicines until the season changed. And then when it became a little cooler, he was going to give the Makhada Dwaja, which was going to increase his strength. But in the hot season, it would have acted like poison. It wouldn't have been good for him. He had to wait till the cold season to give it to him. And in the meantime, very gradually with this medicine, Prabhupada was going to improve his strength. So Banamali wanted him to stay in Vrindavan, continue under his treatment until the cold season started, so he could start the next step in the cure. But as soon as Prabhupada started feeling better from medicine, he wanted to go out and preach. He felt that he was rotting here in Vrindavan. By this time it was August, early August. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, because he saw that Prabhupada wanted to preach and Prabhupada wanted to see all of the disciples, he was encouraging him that if you go to Hawaii, the weather is perfect there. If you visit the temples, the love of the devotees will make you want to stay and you'll just feel so much better. Because he was just trying to think of ways to encourage Prabhupada to continue on. And Prabhupada said, I have not completed my work. So Abhiram was the secretary then, and they were saying, because of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you hadn't finished the translation? He said, no, because I must establish Varnashram. Again and again, anybody who was coming, all the GBCs were coming, he was instructing them that now the next phase is we have to open up farms. Farm. Everything has to be green. And he got out the first canto, 10th chapter, I think number 14 verse, about how the earth was responding when Yudhisthira Maharaj was the emperor. How the milk was just flowing and the land was always moist and producing everything required, so all of the living entities were satisfied. And Prabhupada recalled that when he visited the Gita Nagari farm, which was, at that time it was attached to our New York temple, that the cows were giving so much milk that the cats and the dogs even were getting milk. And they were so happy, they were living next to each other, the dogs never even barked, and the cats were rubbing up against the cows, scratching their backs, and just being very peaceful. So Prabhupada was giving the example that even the envious creatures, they were satisfied when we do farming and cow protection properly. Then he gave the example that the sadhus here, there were tigers here, but the sadhus would offer them milk. Please, please take a little milk, and the tigers would come. And he explained that even in the spiritual world, they're tigers, and they're doing service for Krishna, but nobody's envious. They're all perfectly satisfied just in doing service for Krishna. So Prabhupada had just a pinch of strength, and he wanted to go preach. But there were obstacles, very big obstacles. First of all, Prabhupada, because he had gone to America on the order of spiritual master for preaching, and at that time, in the 70s, America was the most powerful country in the world. And Prabhupada was very proud of the fact that he had made so many American disciples and brought them back here to India. And he called America his fatherland and India his motherland. And he was especially proud of the prestigious fact that he had a green card to America. Because in the 70s, there was even an immigration policy that Indians were not issued visas. You never saw Indians in America at that time. I never saw an Indian in my whole life until I met Srila Prabhupada. They weren't allowed into America unless they had sponsorship, financial guarantee. They made so many blockades for the Indians because it was a poor country at that time. And they were also pro-Russian. And there was Cold War going on. So the fact that Prabhupada had a green card means permanent residence, that was very prestigious for an Indian. But because Prabhupada had gotten sick, he hadn't traveled this year in 1977, they had allowed his passport to expire, his Indian passport, and they had allowed his green card to expire. Because when you get a green card in America, you have to visit America at least once every year. Otherwise, it gets canceled. So he couldn't travel without a passport and without a green card. So the devotees knew some MP in Delhi. Abhiram was sent to Delhi to meet this MP. He went right into the Parliament building looking for this MP. He found him, the MP. At that time, it was a new nation. There wasn't a lot of bribery and money taking and things like that. He just wrote a letter, gave the stamps and seal of approval, and in one day he was able to get the passport renewed so that Prabhupada could travel. But then the difficult part was the American side. So he went to the American embassy, and the consul general, who's right under the ambassador, who deals with all the visas, it was a woman. And she said, no problem, just have him come in. But she said, wait a minute, you're an American, he's Indian, why have you come? Well, his health isn't good. Well, that does it. No, absolutely not, get out of here. If he's not even well enough to come to Delhi, how can I give him a visa to go to America? No visa. Get out. So in those days, there's a consul in Calcutta of America. And one of the consuls there befriended some of our devotees. And the devotees, they missed America, and the consul was trying to get information from them, because actually he was a secret agent. So he would always be asking them what's going on the border, because we had our Mayapur temple, things like that. And the devotees knew that he was trying to get information from them. So Abhiram understood, he knew this person, and he knew that he wasn't just a consul, it was more than that. So he called up this person and he threatened him. He said, Prabhupada needs a visa. Okay, go to you're in Delhi, Vrindavan's under Delhi, go get your visa there. No, she just rejected it. But if you don't give Prabhupada a visa, I'm going to expose you. And the man just started cursing and cursing on the phone, and Abhiram said, "I'm getting on the flight right now. I'm going to be there in your office tomorrow morning," and hung up the phone. He got there to Calcutta, went to the office. The man was still cursing him. He wouldn't describe what the cursing was. He stamped the visa and cursed him out of his office, and Abhiram was able to come back with the visa for America. So the next step was getting there. So because of Prabhupada's condition, he couldn't even practically sit up for a long time. He had been coming to the temple, but you can go upstairs in Prabhupada's upstairs private room here. You see a rocking chair, and it's a special kind of a rocking chair. It has 4 handles on it, and one devotee would grab 2 handles in the back, and one devotee would grab 2 handles in the front. It's not, the handles are the legs, and they would pick up Prabhupada and bring him down to the temple for darshan. And you can, I'll show you pictures of that. Just a minute. This is Srila Prabhupada. You see Prabhupada's hands. They've all become swollen because he couldn't eat. Yes. See the handles there? They're carrying Prabhupada to the temple for darshan in the rocking chair. Now he's come for the deities. He would get Charanamrit, and then he would sit in the courtyard under the tamal tree, and the Gurukul boys would come and dance for him while there was a very sweet kirtan by the devotees. Here the Gurukul boys dancing. And Prabhupada would do this every day. He would come, and it was the only time we would, other than Prabhupada's servants, it was the only time we devotees would be able to see Prabhupada when he came out here under the tamal tree.
In the morning?
Yes, in the morning. It would be about 9 o'clock in the morning, after class. Very sweet kirtan. Okay, so I think that's all the pictures. Let's see. So it was very difficult for Prabhupada to sit for a long time. So they turned the back seat of the car into a bed by taking gutties and making it off. They took a guest house mattress, they put that on top, and they brought Prabhupada down in his chair, and he was able to lie on this bed the whole way to Delhi. And in those days, there was no Indira Gandhi International Airport. It was one building and 3 tables. That was the immigration office. And Prabhupada, because he was Indian, they let him go through right away. But the rest of his group was all Americans. And they took apart every single book, and they opened up all the bags, and there were like 8 of them going with Prabhupada. There was Pradumna, his wife, Pradumna's little 5-year-old son, there was Mal Krishna, there was Abhiram, there was Pendra, there was Guru Kripa. There's a big group going to England with Prabhupada. They all wanted to travel with Prabhupada. So they stopped all the devotees, and Abhiram, being the nurse of Prabhupada, got very upset. He jumped over the immigration desks, and all the FRO people, immigration men, were chasing after him, and he ran into an office, and he said to the officer, he said, "You have to bring our guru, we can't leave him alone." So they brought out Prabhupada to sit there in a wheelchair while everyone got through immigration. So it was very hard getting out of India, but then, and Prabhupada was so disgusted by the way they treated the devotees that he, in the airplane, he said, "I'll be very happy if I never come back to this country." Because when they reached England, maybe it's a 7-hour flight, something like that, there he got VIP treatment. There was a limousine waiting at the airport, at the airplane for him. They immediately took him in. All devotees were able to go directly to the airport. Just Abhiram had to stay and do all of the formalities and get the bags. And Prabhupada just felt, he said at that time that because it was a nice time of the year in England, most of the time of the year is not nice. It's always rainy and cold. But there's some months where it's very beautiful there, and when the sun shines and everything is green and lush and moist. So that was just when Prabhupada went there. And the devotees were so happy to see him. The devotees came from all over Europe, from Germany, from France, from Spain, from Italy. They were all there at the manor to greet Prabhupada. And that made Prabhupada feel so good again, that he was with the devotees. He wasn't rotting here just upstairs on his bed. But his health started to deteriorate again. So at that time, this was one of the Life Membership Preachers' journals. And the first few pages, you'll see, just like all Life Membership Preachers do, they keep a record of their life members and how much payment they've made, how much further they have to go in their installments, things like that. This is all life member stuff. So they took this book because they had to keep a log of Prabhupada's health at this time, because his health was deteriorating. And Abhiram gives very vivid description of how suddenly one night Prabhupada just collapsed into his arms, and they had to rush him to the hospital, and he had to get an emergency operation to remove the liquid from his body, because you saw his hands were all swollen. It appeared to be edema when the kidneys start to fail. So after the operation, you can see here, if you can read it well enough, Prabhupada was just having fruit juices, mystery water, Horlicks, only liquids at that time. And sometimes, like Shruti Rupa Abhiram's wife was there, sometimes he would ask her to make khichdi, but he would just have like 20 grams of it. So they have different columns here, like who was doing the service at the time, either Upendra, Abhiram, whoever was there. They had to put their initials. They had to count the grams of urine, the grams of how much intake, how much output, and every single day like that. It went on until Prabhupada's last day. We can scroll down here. See, this is September. There, November now. We're up to November. So this log was being kept very religiously. They had to measure, because the input, whether the input and the output were equal like that, and the doctor, the Kaviraj, was instructing how much input has to be per day according to the medicine. It was all very scientifically being done. So you have November 8th, November 11th, and then 12th, 13th, and then it's over, November 14th. So this was the log. We have the pages here if anyone wants to see it. We sent back the original log. We sent all of these papers to the archives to be preserved, and the archives sent us color preserved copies, because the weather here in Vrindavan is very difficult for paper and for cloth, because we have very high temperatures and also very low temperatures. And when you preserve things, everything has to be kept at one temperature only. So we knew that we couldn't do that, and we couldn't have air conditioning in all of the display cabinets. So what we did was we sent many of the original things to the archive, because they have huge vaults where they preserve everything. And they sent us copies of things so that we can just display the copies. And then when those copies are disintegrated, they'll continue to send us copies like that. The head of the archives came about 3 years ago, Param Rupa Prabhu. He's a very behind-the-scenes person. It was he who started the Bhaktivedanta archives, the Prabhupada archives. And the front man that we always hear about is Ekanath Das. So he does most of the writing, but Param Rupa, he knows how to do all this preservation. So he came here a few years ago, and he deacidified as much as he could of Prabhupada's clothes and Prabhupada's papers, and everything else we gave to them. Now, we also have, for instance, so after Prabhupada had that operation, he again told the devotees that I have to go back to Vrindavan because it's time for me to go. So they booked the flight. We had, for instance, Prabhupada, when Prabhupada decided he was going, he told me to immediately go and cook for him when he was feeling better. So I flew right to New York, because the plan was he would stop in London, then he would go to New York, then he would go to Gita Nagari. At Gita Nagari, he wanted all the leaders to come. He wanted to teach them Varnashram. And then from Gita Nagari, he was thinking to go to New Vrindavan. He couldn't even hardly sit. And he was already planning his next world tour. And the end place was going to be Hawaii, where he would regain his health. But he spent 10 days in London, and then he had to come back. But he didn't even come back to Vrindavan, because if you go into Prabhupada's room, you'll see a picture. Let's see. Where's the... Is this it? No. Just a second. I have to find this. Just a minute. Okay. This is after the rocking chair, when Prabhupada was even too weak to sit in the rocking chair. You'll see the original palanquin in Prabhupada's prasadam room, where he would go around. This is when Srila Prabhupada decided he was going to leave his body, and he was going to stop eating. When Prabhupada's sister, Pishima, actually, Prabhupada's sister was initiated by Srila Bhaktisanta Saraswati, and her Diksha name was Bhavatarini. But Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami would only give her Harinam Diksha because her husband was not vegetarian. And being the wife, it meant that she would have to serve her husband. And so she, after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left this world, and after her husband passed on, his name was Rasabihari Das. He became a devotee by the influence of his saintly wife. So Rasabihari, he also left the world. She took second initiation at that time from one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, Bhakti Saranga Goswami at Imli Tala. So when Pishima heard that Prabhupada had come back from Rishikesh and had stopped eating, she immediately came here. and she was sitting by Prabhupada's bed. She was maybe a half a meter away from Prabhupada, and Bhaktichara was sitting there also. By this time, Prabhupada, he decided one day, it was the day of, he couldn't go to London because he hadn't brought his passport with him. So when Prabhupada came back from London, Pishima came, and Prabhupada called for Bhaktichara to come, and on the day of, what is that day when you offer the winter clothes to, no, it must have been Snanyatra, because it was the hot time. So Pishima was sitting a half a meter away from Prabhupada, and Bhaktichara Swami was there, and Prabhupada would say to Bhaktichara Swami, ask her what she wants to cook. And then Bhaktichara would say, ask her, what do you want to cook? This is in Bengali. And she said, she would tell him, I want to cook whatever he wants me to cook. So then Bhaktichara would tell Prabhupada, she wants to cook whatever. So this three-way conversation went on till, 4 or 5 times, until finally Prabhupada just broke. He said, all right, make khichdi for me. So she immediately ran to the kitchen. She cooked an entire feast for Prabhupada after all that. So that was Pishima. So, and sometimes Prabhupada would have Bhaktichara cook different things. He tells a very famous story about, he wanted Bhaktichara to make a specific recipe. It sounded like lafra, but I don't know what the name was. He wanted pumpkin and spinach, and one of the things that was in the ingredients was bitter melon. So he went down to the market, got all the things, but he forgot to get the bitter melon. No, not sukta. Yeah. Well, anyway, he didn't give the name of it, so we don't have to speculate. He says sukta? Okay, fine. When he gave the interview, he didn't say sukta because he knew how to make sukta. It was something else. So Prabhupada asked him, did you bring everything? And he said, yes, Prabhupada. But then he remembered that he hadn't brought the bitter melon. So we used to have a worker here named Kanaya. Now he has a little tea shop after he retired, he opened up a tea shop on the Parikrama Marg. So he sent Kanaya down to the market by bicycle to quickly get some Karela, but Kanaya couldn't find any. So Bhaktichara was in so much anxiety that normally he would come around behind the temple to get to the kitchen, but for some unknown reason, he was just in so much tension. He went into the Gurukul building and he went onto the veranda, and right there on the floor of the veranda was a bright green 5-inch piece of Karela. So he grabbed it and he ran to Prabhupada and told him, okay, I have everything now, Prabhupada, so Prabhupada could tell him how to make it. And Prabhupada said to him, yes, you have the Karela, as if Prabhupada knew everything. He was smiling at him. But Prabhupada didn't come back immediately. Because if you go into Prabhupada's room, if that's right, this is why I opened this. Because this is when Prabhupada would come out on his rocking chair and sit underneath the tree. Bringing Prabhupada back. I'm just going to skip this part because I just want to show you one picture. See, Prabhupada had made a promise to Radha Rasabihari in Bombay that he would build a temple for them. And he was very concerned that temple be built while he was still on the planet. So rather than coming directly back to Vrindavan, Prabhupada decided to go to Bombay, because the temple was supposed to be opened in October. So this is when Prabhupada was returning. What happened to that picture? I'm sorry. I'm just looking for this picture of the Rasa Bihari. You can see it, it's right behind Prabhupada, behind his left shoulder. The picture of Radha Rasa Bihari that Prabhupada used to carry with him everywhere. I'm just hoping we can find it. It's in the book somewhere. Here it is. This beautiful picture. So Prabhupada wanted to go first to Bombay, and he was hoping that the temple could be opened in October. And we heard a few days ago about Prabhupada's rooms in Bombay, because the two towers, the round towers that were going to be the guest house, on the upper floor of one of the towers, they were making a beautiful quarters for Srila Prabhupada. Have any of you been to the Bombay quarters of Prabhupada? Very beautiful, overlooking the temple and everything, windows and many, many rooms. There was a kitchen, there was a bedroom, there was a prasadam room, there was a servant's room, everything you could dream of, like a house. It was the whole floor of one of the towers. Prabhupada insisted in staying in the tower, in his tower quarters, but wasn't even ready. But he wanted to make sure that he would be there for when the temple would be open. But again, Surab came to him and explained to him that Prabhupada is not going to be ready. The earliest it could be ready would be maybe in January. So when Prabhupada heard that it couldn't be opened in October, Prabhupada understood the condition of his health. He decided then to go back again to Vrindavan. So, let's see, 6 o'clock. Okay, we have a lot to cover. Right. So now Prabhupada is back again in Vrindavan. He's come from Bombay. He came by train from Bombay. They were afraid to take him in the airplane. And they were also afraid because Prabhupada didn't like air conditioning. He wouldn't stay in air-conditioned rooms. So they booked a first-class compartment for him and his servants. And when he got in the compartment, he said, "Why didn't you book an AC?" Because it was so uncomfortable for him. So he and Abhiram stayed together. And then when Prabhupada came back, did we miss the part when he came back? I'll get the pictures. Just a minute. Where is it? There's a whole set of pictures of when Prabhupada returned for the second time. Here they are. Yes. So when Prabhupada arrived in Mathura Junction and got off of the train, Bhagitji had arranged for him a wheelchair. And Prabhupada did not like that wheelchair at all. We still have the wheelchair here in Prabhupada's bedroom. But all he did was he used that wheelchair from the Mathura Junction to the car. And then once he got out of the car here at his gate right here, they got his rocking chair, and he was carried into his room. Let's see. They're carrying Prabhupada. He wasn't able to walk anymore. So the devotees, this is now Hari Sori has joined the group. Ramananda is also there. And after this, Prabhupada doesn't leave Vrindavan again.
He came back which month?
October. Pretty sure it was October, yes. So then, because of Prabhupada's health, they got the palanquin made. And every day, Prabhupada would go for darshan, and then at least 4 times, after taking darshan, he would do parikrama in the outside of the temple. And he said every day, I see now he's not in his rocking chair anymore, now they would bring Prabhupada for darshan in the palanquin. Same program, kirtan, and the children would dance for Prabhupada. You see how his health has deteriorated here. So Prabhupada said, if I die on parikrama, then that is glorious. So every day I must go on parikrama of the temple. At least 4 times he would go. And even if I can't go on the palanquin, then you make a stretcher for me. And you take me on parikrama around the temple. So this developed later on. We'll discuss that tomorrow, about this going on parikrama. So these are pictures of Prabhupada when he would go daily around the temple on parikrama. At this time, Prabhupada, he said, because 2 of his GBCs, that was Bhavananda and Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he said that they were his left hand and his right hand, because they were always by Prabhupada's side during these last 2 months. Also, Sharadanya, who was sannyasi at the time, he was here. He was the attendant. Upendra was the nurse. No, Upendra. Sharadanya, he's American. Excuse me?
Went to New York, huh?
Yeah, I went to New York.
Did you come to Vrindavan?
Yeah, I got back as soon as I could. I had to get a new visa. It wasn't easy. So, at this time, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, this is Sarup Damodar Das Brahmachari, Bhakti Sarup Damodar Maharaj. And Prabhupada had been training him over the years how to preach Krishna consciousness to the scientists. So Sarup Damodar, he had begun the Bhaktivedanta Institute under Prabhupada's instructions, and he wanted to have a conference here in October. He invited over 100 big scientists, all from India, like the head of the physics department of IIT in Delhi, and all types of big chief guests, and they all said that they would come. The arrangement was made that they were going to stay in the guest house, and they had prepared a big conference hall in the new Gurukula building with tables and chairs, and they were going to feed them prasadam every day with knives and spoons and forks and chairs to sit on, and even the scientists who came, the devotee scientists who came, they all wore shirts and ties, but they also had tilak and bead bags. So Prabhupada also had them make big maps. We had a whole room of astronomical maps of the universe. And Prabhupada wanted to combine the Bhaktivedanta Institute with the Gurukula so that the children could get... See, according to Srila Prabhupada, just by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, you can get all the Vedic science and medical science, any type of science, astrological, astronomical, all types of science directly from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So even one of Prabhupada's doctor friends, he had a whole visual program with slides and instructions. He had an idea how to teach the Gurukul boys science. These are the scientists. That's from left to right. Gyanadas, Swarup Damodar, then Brahmatirtha Das, Madhava Das, and Sadaputta Das. So they were the leaders. Other ones also came. Rupanuga came. But these were the leaders of the conference. And because Prabhupada was very happy with this conference, because Prabhupada couldn't personally attend, you'll see in Prabhupada's back room here, someone had made this bust of Srila Prabhupada. In English it's called a bust. I don't know what when it's just the head of a person. So Bhardraj had come here to do kirtan for Prabhupada. He was a very good kirtaniya. And Bhardraj, he was the one who made the deities. He was an excellent artist. And way back in 1970, when the books were being printed at ISKCON Press, Prabhupada sent an instruction to the artists that when we put a picture of Prabhupada on his books, you always have to have the full form of the Guru. You should never just have part of his body, like this. Because sometimes, like in the back of the original Krishna books, they just had the upper portion of Prabhupada, not the full form. So Prabhupada explained to the artists that when you have something that is going to be worshipped, like a book or a photo that you put on the altar, it has to be the full form with the feet, the whole body of the Guru. So Bhardraj asked Prabhupada that, well, how can we use this bust of you when you told us that it has to be the full form? So Prabhupada explained that this isn't going to be worshipped. A bust can be put in a library, it can be put different places where people aren't going to worship. It's so that he's just the author of these particular books. So he approved this idea, and then later Bhima Das and other people made these busts of Prabhupada to put into libraries and people's homes and things like that. So Prabhupada called Swarup Damodar and told him, I can't attend the conferences, but you can take this bust, and at the beginning of each conference each day, you can put a garland on this bust, and that will be my presence there. And every evening, they would come and report to Prabhupada about what the different, because each scientist got to speak. It was the International Conference of Life Comes from Life, something like that. So each of these scientists was now being exposed to the atmosphere of Vrindavan, and they were very impressed. No one dreamed that there would be a beautiful temple with scientists, with so many Westerners in the middle of Vrindavan Dham. They just thought it was a holy place. So they came away very impressed by the conference, and in fact, one of them even wanted to send his son to the Gurukula, and most of them requested that every year they have a conference here in Vrindavan. They were so impressed. And because they got to come here for the conference, they also got to take darshan in the temple, and it had a very good effect on the scientists here, some of the top scientists here in Vrindavan. So this was a very, and one day while Bhakti Swarup Damodar and Prabhupada were talking, they were having a long talk about what the scientists were saying. Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, would you like us to start kirtan now? And Prabhupada said, this is kirtan. If you're discussing Bhagavatam, if you're discussing service, or if you're having kirtan like chanting Hare Krishna, it's all kirtan. So we're having kirtan by discussing this science conference. Prabhupada considered that to also be kirtan. So now we'll go back to where we were. So this was the first time that Prabhupada came, when he was still sitting in the chair. And now he's come back the second time in the palanquin. This is when Bhakti Swarup had the conference. Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj took sannyas after Prabhupada left. So he was still a brahmachari at that time. This is the, now, the devotees living here at that time, we discussed that there was a secret stairway that could go to all the different kitchens where the prasad, the bhoga was being prepared, and then it could be taken up to be offered to the deities. Now Prabhupada found out that the managers had hired cooks and had hired workers to cut the vegetables, and the devotees were not doing the cooking or even the cutting of the vegetables. And he said, it must immediately stop. These hired cooks are the most wretched people in the world. And the devotees are sitting idly, and you have hired people cutting the vegetables. And on top of that, the cooks, for us, they were making the most inedible things. And for them, they were taking home, each cook would get 8 chapatis with ghee and a whole tiffin. We never saw chapatis. We only got rice and dal and maybe a potato sabji. And they were walking home with all the prasadam that they were cooking. So Prabhupada, he stopped immediately. We had just opened up the Gurukula building, and in the Gurukula building was a big kitchen. He said all of the kitchens had to be moved to that one kitchen. And all of the devotees, all of the students, all of the life members, all of the guests, all should take prasadam together in the prasadam hall there. So this is the prasadam hall. We were discussing how Bhagaji designed it with different colors, where the plates go, where the devotees sit, where the servers are supposed to walk. So this is an example of that.
Where is that now?
It's a, yeah, same place. Where this room. This was our prasadam hall for everybody. The life members would get coupons. They would go over there, and they made Ayodhyapati Das the cook for everything. And even the restaurant cooking was going on. Everything was going on there, because if it was all in one place, people couldn't steal things, because everybody would see what everybody else was doing. And the whole quality of the prasadam got so elevated, everyone was satisfied. There were 2 sabjis, there was raita, there was chutney, because it was devotees cooking. So, and everyone was just glorifying the cooking and thanking Prabhupada for making such a nice arrangement now. And although Prabhupada wasn't eating, he said just by hearing how the devotees were now happy, then it was as if he was eating. He was eating for the devotees that way. So it was wonderful that Prabhupada made this arrangement for the devotees at that time, so they could all take prasadam together. And even in that condition, Prabhupada was giving, in October, like October 26th or something, very late, Prabhupada had the devotees take him to the Gurukula. He wanted to see how the Gurukula was going on. And Narnava, who was in charge of the construction, he was showing Prabhupada where the Gurukul boys were staying, and he asked permission for the brahmacharis, because the brahmacharis were still all here in the inner ashram. He asked permission if they could stay on the top floor. Prabhupada gave permission. Then he asked permission if the Grhasthas could stay on the top floor, because they were still, some of them were still up here. And Prabhupada said, no ladies should stay in that building. So that was the rule that's always been like that. No women have ever stayed in the Gurukula building. We had offices there, but after Prabhupada left. And then, Akshayananda Swami, he wanted to move his office over there because he was up in room number 18. And Prabhupada said, no, You don't have one leg here and one leg there. And then he said, and we have 4 students and 300 managers. He said you should have 500 students and 10 managers. And he was teaching them the monitor system. And he didn't want any offices in the Gurukul. He wanted everything to be just for the students, and then upstairs could be brahmachari ashram. And then the devotees started asking, he said, we have so many children all over the world, they can all come here now to study. And he gave the example of our Dallas Gurukula, which was the first Gurukul that Prabhupada started, how the government stepped in and started making so many restrictions that we had to close it down. And that was why he wanted absolutely no government intervention in the Gurukula. He just wanted it purely as a traditional Vedic Gurukula, learning from the Shastras, from Prabhupada's books, and following the temple program, which they did at that time, and growing up to be Brahmins who then could go out and preach in all the temples around the world. We needed to train the youth to be devotees. There were plenty of engineers, plenty of doctors, but there were no devotees. So he wanted this Gurukula to train the boys to be devotee leaders. And that means learn how to preach and learn the Shastras. So that's why he wasn't keen on any type of intervention or curriculum or accreditation from the government or any of these private institutions. No. And you can read about all that. So these are later pictures. We didn't have cameras in those days, so these are pictures of a few years ago at the Gurukula. And then Prabhupada amalgamated the Bhaktivedanta Institute with the Gurukula, so the children could also learn from our scientist devotees, the higher sciences that are being explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 5th canto, and about the creation and everything like that. So we have Prabhupada here. Now, Prabhupada also was concerned about how, this is what our restaurant used to look like. It was on the, where our VIP room is now, that was the restaurant. And everyone had their own table, and it was a success in those days, except that it was not well known because it was on the first floor. And that was why later, in 1983, Saurabh, who Prabhupada in 1976, Prabhupada gave Saurabh sannyas and named him Surabhi Abhipaliyantam Swami. So he was known as Surabhi Swami. So Surabhi Swami, he then moved the restaurant down there. The same year that the Samadhi was inaugurated, that's when the restaurant was moved downstairs. But it was very nice prasadam, and the guests who stayed in the guest house used to take prasadam there, so it was very convenient for them. Prabhupada was very pleased to hear that his ideas were all fructifying now. We were getting... Excuse me? Who was it? There were many, many different people, one after another, in charge. He might have been. There were a lot of different people in charge. And then we would have several classes in the temple at that time. We would have the morning Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam class. And then before the evening artik, we would have a Hindi Bhagavad Gita class. That was given by Bhakti Prem Swami. He was a yogi who joined Srila Prabhupada, took initiation, took sannyas from him. So he would give a Hindi Bhagavad Gita class before the evening artik, and then after the evening artik, because it was already late and things still hadn't developed very much here, most of the pilgrims would have left by then. So then we had our English Bhagavad Gita class in the temple at that time. So there were 2 Bhagavad Gita classes in the temple in those days. Prabhupada was happy to hear that. The deities were very beautifully dressed in those days. Omkara was the head pujari, and being very artistic, being a tailor himself, this is not from that time. We didn't have many. Whatever pictures we had, we put in the book. And then this is now the MVT, the concept that Prabhupada had for the Grhastha ashram. So the Grihasthas were very much an integral part of the temple, and Prabhupada wanted them here, and he wanted them to engage in service, but he didn't want them to be dependent on the temple. He wanted them to contribute to the temple. So the 6 Goswamis, they started the temples, and it was their disciples who became the pujaris. And that's how things gradually, in many of the temples, deteriorated, because it turned into family businesses. So Prabhupada, at this time, he felt that he was leaving, and he decided to make a will. And each temple was to have 3 committee members to oversee the temples. And in his will, he gave the name of who those 3 people would be. So for our Vrindavan temple, our 3 committee members were Gopal Krishna Das, Akshayananda Swami, and Guru Kripa Swami. And these were lifetime assignments for these 3 trustees. And if for some reason, either by death or the fact that they couldn't execute their duties anymore, they could be replaced with someone new. For instance, Akshayananda Swami became inactive in ISKCON, but to my knowledge, no one replaced him. But still, Guru Kripa and Gopal Krishna Maharaj, they're still the trustees here. So Guru Kripa, he still comes twice a year and gives his advice. And of course we have Gopal Krishna Maharaj as our GBC, who is overseeing the activities, most of the preaching activities, everything here. Everything is consulted with him. So Prabhupada, at that time, he instructed the leaders to not keep money in the bank. Because we heard a few days ago how Prabhupada began the bank here. As soon as Prabhupada made the first deposit, the bank, they considered that money to be theirs. And every time Prabhupada tried to withdraw money or transfer money, they would put a block. And Prabhupada, according to his will, the trustees were allowed to sign on his behalf, but the bank wouldn't accept their signatures. So in other words, the bank was trying to keep all the money that we were putting in the bank. They wouldn't let the money come out. So Prabhupada understood that, and he gradually tried to take all the money out of the bank. Finally, when Prabhupada did enter Samadhi, right after that, his son, it was mostly one son, they made a court case saying that ISKCON was actually a family business, it belonged to the family, and all of the temples and all of the money belonged to their family. So, and this court case went on for 17 years in Bombay. And as soon as this court case was registered, the Indian government froze all of the ISKCON accounts, and none of the temples in India were able to get any of their money out of the banks. So fortunately, we only had 3 lakhs in the bank at that time. But from that day, we had nothing. We had to recollect everything. So before this happened, Prabhupada again and again told the devotees, do not keep money idly in the bank. He made a formula. He said 50% should go for printing more books, and 50% can go for construction, development, and for preaching activities. So this is how Prabhupada wanted all of our donations and all of our temple money to be spent. He wanted 50% to go back into making books, and 50% for our temple maintenance, for construction, for development, and everything like that. He did not want money kept in the bank. And we understood very quickly why he gave that instruction, because all the money got frozen. Finally, Hari Sori Prabhu, many, many years later, was able to free up the MVT money, the Calcutta money, the Mayapur money, but this bank hid the money so perfectly that we couldn't even find records of the money that they froze. Everything was totally destroyed. So all that money, we don't know where it went. We tried and tried for years to get the money back, but I didn't even have a record of this bank extension anymore by that time. So we should try to follow Prabhupada's instructions and use the money for book printing and for development, and not keep a lot of money in the bank. So now we've seen when Prabhupada comes back. Now he's at his house. Now Hari Sori has again joined the party, and it was he who brought this bed. He got it from a life member. Before that there was no bed in Prabhupada's big room, but he got this bed so that Prabhupada could stay there from now on, because he wasn't going to be moving around anymore. On his first trip here, he would go upstairs and they would bring him down on the staircase with the rocking chair. But this time when he came back, he wasn't going to go upstairs anymore. Oh, there was one beautiful pastime. The first time Prabhupada was here, because his upstairs room is right at the window of where the deity kitchen was. And by that time, when Hari Sori was our temple commander, he had a system that any new devotees, they had to first stay in his room with him, and he had to see whether they were serious or not. So 2 devotees came to join, and that was Dadi Baksha and Bibhu Chaitanya. So they stayed in Hari Sori's room, and Hari Sori saw that they were serious devotees. So they had Bibhu Chaitanya cook. He got initiated quickly, and then he started to cook right away. And whenever he would cook, he would sing beautifully. And one day, he was cooking, and Prabhupada smelled what he was cooking. And he called Bhakti Charu Swami and asked him, he said, go to the kitchen and find out what they're cooking. So he went over and asked Bibhu Chaitanya. Bibhu Chaitanya said he was making kachuris and samosas that day. He would make kachuris and samosas on weekends to sell. Aside from the fact that it was for the deities, for their pleasure, but he would make extra things on weekends because we had more guests. So Prabhupada said, go bring me some. So Bhakti Charu ran, because Prabhupada hardly been eating anything. He ran, and just as he was running from this staircase here, Tamal and Bhavananda were coming up the stairs. Where are you going? Oh, Prabhupada wants some. No, you can't feed him that. He just ran right past them. And he got 2 of each. And Prabhupada was sitting up here on his bed, and Bhakti Charu just went right past. Tamal and Bhavananda were sitting on the floor at Prabhupada's bed, and Prabhupada was on the bed, and Bhakti Charu brings the samosas and kachuris, and Prabhupada immediately smashes it down, and they're looking at Prabhupada and glaring at Bhakti Charu, and Prabhupada says to them, do not see, so they put their heads down. And he eats a whole kachuri and a whole samosa, and with their heads down. And then afterwards, Tamal yells at Bhakti Charu, now Prabhupada won't be able to sleep the whole night, he'll be so disturbed by this. And Bhakti Charu said the whole night he slept so soundly, it was a wonderful night. So, there was another incident where Kirtanananda came from New Vrindavan, And New Vrindavan, they do a lot of artwork there. They make all the deities' jewelry, and they made the whole beautiful Prabhupada palace, beautiful work. And they even make beautiful deity outfits, and with jewels and real jewels, things like that. So they had brought a very big donation for Prabhupada and all types of jewelry and things for Prabhupada that they had made. So first Prabhupada was thinking, well, I can give all of this the jewelry to the deities here, Krishnabalaram. But then he thought, well, it'll just get stolen if I give it here. So he told Kirtananda that you take this money and you take all of these gifts and bring them back to Radha Vrindavan Chandra and use everything there in New Vrindavan because you need everything there. So Kirtananda, he stayed for some time, and he was putting Prabhupada on a very strict diet, like a health food diet. And Prabhupada didn't like it. And Pishima had come, and she was cooking for him. And Kirtananda was trying to convince Prabhupada not to eat what she was cooking. He couldn't eat it anyway. He would just look at it, and you can read in the book, he would take maybe 20 grams of something. 20 grams is nothing, But he would let her cook because she wanted to cook, and it would give him an appetite. So Kirtananda he would talk to Prabhupada like he was a little child, that, Prabhupada, you don't really want to eat that. And Prabhupada got angry at him. He said, never think that you know more than your spiritual master. So he chastised him. And Kirtananda got so upset by this that the next day he left and went back to New Vrindavan. But Prabhupada was teaching us a very important instruction at that time. We should never think that we're going to save Prabhupada with this diet, that diet. Prabhupada is Srila Prabhupada. He'll do whatever he wants to do. And there's another example of that. We have here prescriptions and astrological charts. Prabhupada used to have a lot of fun with these because every once in a while they would call doctors. And each doctor would give a different prescription, and Prabhupada would read them and never follow them. And not only that, they would go to the most famous astrologers and get astrological charts of Prabhupada's life, how long he was going to live, when were the dangerous times, things like that. Every single chart was different. So sometimes Prabhupada would say, bring the charts, let's have some fun. And they would read, like this is we had one famous allopathic doctor. So he gave his allopathic medicine, another one came from Calcutta, another one came from Prayag. They were all giving their medicine. Prabhupada didn't take any of them. So one of the astrologers said that Prabhupada had to wear a blue sapphire. Now, I don't know if a blue star sapphire, they're like one of the most expensive jewels that you can get. They're a sapphire, beautiful blue sapphire with a white star that moves around inside. So Abhiram got him one, and Guru Kripa got him one. They both got him one, and Prabhupada would wear those just because the devotee got them for him. Not that it was going to make any difference. So Prabhupada would sometimes look at these astrological charts with devotees just to see what they say are the dangerous days. Like they would say, if Prabhupada can get past this day, then he'll live for another 30 years. They would say things like that. So Prabhupada would just joke with the devotees how not a single one of them was right. Nobody got it right. So we sent these to the archives. Now, do we have? Yes. Samadhi Pit, translation. And let's go back to the book. So Bhagaji had gotten permission from the municipality for the gate. This is the gate while it was under construction. and he got permission for 2 gates. This was the small gate that we have. And there was another gate that was supposed to be at the entrance of Vrindavan, down by the highway. That was supposed to be a bigger gate, but that one never got built, unfortunately. So now, when Prabhupada came back the second time, Prabhupada said that if you drink milk from a pure black cow, that has special nourishment in it. So Bhagavaji and Gunarnava ran out, they found a completely black cow, and they brought it here to the front of Prabhupada's house, and they kept that cow here. You know, there's a little garden here. They kept that cow here all the time. So at any time Prabhupada wanted milk, they would just go milk the cow and give Prabhupada the milk. And later, one night, Gunarnava was in Prabhupada's room chanting the very soft kirtan for him. Prabhupada was having 24-hour kirtan with kartals about this big made out of ashtadhatu. They were just like 2 inches in diameter. And made out of ashtadhatu, one was the color of Krishna and one was the color of Radharani. Very, very gentle kirtan. And he gave 4 mantras for the devotees to chant. One is the Panchatattva mantra, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. One is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The next is, the next mantra he gave, I have it here, it's slokas 38 and 39 of Brahma Samhita. I have it. It's way down. How will I find it? If anyone can look up on their phone those 2 slokas, it might be hard for me to find it. You have Brahma Samhita, verses 38 and 39. One is about Krishna and one is about Balaram. No, I've gone past it. 38, 39, yes. Oh, I can look it up here. Yes. So, you have it? No, I went to Sanskrit. 33. Premanjana churit bhakti vilochanena santak sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achinta guna swarupam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. And the next one is, Ramadi murtishu kala niyamena tishtan navattara makaro bhuvaneshu kintu Krishna swayam samabhavat paramam pumanyo Govindam Ari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So those 4 mantras were sung to Prabhupada in his room. One day Tamal Krishna Goswami asked Prabhupada, when you see the deities, do you think of Shyamsundar or Govinda? And Prabhupada said, Shyamsundar is a very good name. Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Jai Krishnabalaram. So he gave that mantra. Because Radhe Shyam is Radhe Shyam Sundar. So he liked that name of Radhe Shyam Sundar. So, now, where are we? Okay. So here you have Bhavananda, the left hand, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj, the right hand of Prabhupada. They stay with Prabhupada that the whole time towards the end. Okay, so we'll stop here for today. We'll do from November 1977 onwards tomorrow. Does anyone have any questions?
Mataji, regarding the money, Prabhupada said 50% for the books and the rest for the money.
Yes.
The temple. But most of them, the temple
You have to ask them.
Means they follow the, they not follow Prabhupada, or they are intrinsically, or sometimes they buy different things in temple, just like gift cards and other things they buy. So this
Yeah.
recommendation is there.
Well, I'm not in the management, so you have to ask the management why they do what they do. Okay? Hare Krishna. Oh yes, I cooked for Prabhupada in 1974 and 1975. I had the great fortune of learning how to cook from Prabhupada's sister Pishima. I lived with her here as her servant, and she taught me how to cook. And then after she taught me how to cook, then Prabhupada had me learn how to cook from Bhagavaji. So I learned Bengali cooking from Pishima, and then I learned Brijbasi cooking from Bhagavaji. And Prabhupada would have me cook for him here, Calcutta, Mayapur, Delhi, and Bombay, in those places. His menu? His menu was the same wherever we traveled with him. In the morning after Prabhupada gave the Srimad Bhagavatam class, we would make for him. Now, I don't know what other cook made, because I only learned from Pishima and from Bhagavaji. So what I learned to make from them in the morning is we would soak chira. You know, you wash chira once, you let it absorb a little water, and then we would boil milk and pour the hot milk into the chira and let it fluff. Then we would make urad dal wada. And the way Pishima taught me to make the urad dal wada is it would have ginger, we grind up spices, ginger and fresh ginger and chilies and like that, salt, and make just wada, not the South Indian type. And we would make fresh coconut chutney, and there would be different cups of fruits nicely cut up, and we would give the Mangal Arti sweet. And in those days I used to make the Mangal Arti sweet for the deities, so at night time I would make the sweets, and the most, you know, would all go to Krishnabalaram kitchen, but then I would keep aside for Prabhupada's plate in the morning. So that would be the morning breakfast. And then in the afternoon, Prabhupada would have me cook with his cooker. He trained me how to use his cooker so that I could go in at 11 o'clock and set up his cooker. Now in Prabhupada's cooker, on the bottom pot, we would make the dal, and in the middle pot, we would cut up vegetables and their holes. So we would make these little bridges over the holes so that the vegetables would all be steamed. And in the upper pot, we would put rice, and sometimes in the rice we would cut up, Prabhupada really liked potatoes. So we would sometimes cut up just squares of potatoes and put them into the rice. And then it would take exactly 45 minutes for everything to cook in the cooker. And during those 45 minutes, Bhagavaji trained me how to make chapatis, rotis, on a chula. So we would go get the chula ready and bring it into the kitchen, and we would start making the chapatis. But the chapatis, see, Prabhupada in Bombay, he taught Harikesh and me how to make one chapati a minute. He came in one day, and Harikesh had just come from that trip from Mauritius, you know, from when he went to Africa. And Harikesh was a servant. The servants and the cooks always had to cooperate together, of course. Servants, cooks, and secretaries. So, and we all were like a family. And if they didn't get along with each other, then it would cause a disturbance to Prabhupada. So Harikesh and I had never worked together before as Prabhupada's cook and secretary. He was the secretary. So when he saw me in the kitchen, he started teaching me how to cook for Prabhupada, and I didn't want to say anything to him, you know, that I already knew how to cook. So that day, because when you serve the prasadam Prabhupada, you have to immediately start bringing in fresh chapatis on the spot. So that day, I came in late with chapati. And Prabhupada said, why are you late? I said, well, Harikesh is teaching me how to make chapatis. And Prabhupada said, well, neither of you know how to make chapatis. I will teach both of you how to make chapatis. So Prabhupada came into the kitchen and he showed us how to make chapatis. And then he said, from now on, 1 chapati a minute you bring in. So the next day, when I brought Prabhupada's plate in, Prabhupada said to me, that you already know how to cook. We had a lot of leelas there. Finally, because not only Harikesh, because again I tried to explain a few days ago, Harikesh, he wanted to do everything for Prabhupada. He wanted to cook, he wanted to be the servant, he wanted to be the everything for Prabhupada. And at the same time, Navayogendra Das, he was a brahmachari at the time, he wanted to cook for Prabhupada. And he had his own way of making chapatis that he had learned from a Gujarati life member there in Bombay. So he insisted, after Prabhupada had taught us how to make chapatis, he insisted on coming in and making chapatis for Prabhupada. And those chapatis were made with milk. So when Navayogendra made those chapatis and put them on the plate, Prabhupada came into the kitchen and he said to me, he said, do not put milk in my chapatis. And I said, Prabhupada, I would never put milk in your chapatis. Navayogendra, and I explained to Prabhupada, you know, so it was very close quarters in Bombay. It's not the same as here where you have the whole house. It was everybody all crushed together, all the servants, the cook, the secretaries, everybody was the GBC, and Prabhupada just had his one little room. It was just too many cooks. Somebody had to go, so of course I had to go. So that's when Prabhupada sent me to be the pujari there in Delhi. And 15 days later, Harikesh and Prabhupada come to Delhi. And the first thing Harikesh did was, he offers his dandavats to me. He says, I'm so sorry I sent you away. He said, as soon as you left, because Prabhupada was away in Africa, because everything was not in order in Bombay, so Giriraj let me redo the whole quarters Vrindavan style and buy everything new for Prabhupada. We got all beautiful marble and stone plates, and some of them are still existing. You can see them there in Prabhupada's rooms in Bombay. He said, every day I broke one bowl. Finally, there was only one bowl left, Prabhupada's Sukta bowl, and I broke that one too. And then he and Navayogendra even couldn't get along. They would fight constantly because Harikesh was cooking and Navayogendra was massaging. Navayogendra was massaging. And every time Navayogendra plugged in the hot water heater to make hot water for Prabhupada's bath, it would cause Harikesh to get electrocuted in the kitchen at the sink. So Harikesh would ask him, don't plug in the thing. No, I have to plug it in. So finally, one day they had a fist fight, and Prabhupada had to separate them. And the joys of serving Srila Prabhupada, you know. So Prabhupada separated them, and he told them, we should never do any service that will cause inconvenience to another devotee's service. That's like, if you ever want to remember a golden rule in your Krishna consciousness, you can remember that. Never do any service that's going to cause inconvenience to another devotee's service. So Harikesh was telling you about, then one day Harikesh forgot to give, Prabhupada went in to take his bath and Harikesh forgot to put a towel in the bathroom. And Prabhupada came out and said, such big intelligence, and where is my towel? So it was just a total, he was really sorry. So, where were we? Oh yes, Prabhupada's lunch. So rice, dal, chapati, and sabji for lunch. And then in the afternoon, Prabhupada would sometimes take a little rest, or he would translate. And then at about 4 o'clock, we would either give him fruits or we would make fruit juice for him. And then at night, Prabhupada would give Bhagavad Gita class, and then when he'd come back from Bhagavad Gita class, we'd have the whole upstairs here spotlessly clean for him. Because he would, from 9 o'clock at night, 8:30 at night, until 6 o'clock the next morning, Prabhupada would be upstairs. He spent a lot of time up there doing his translation, chanting his japa on this back roof here. So we would bring him at 9 o'clock, we would bring him choris, or we would bring him paratha, or steamed apples, or muri, popcorn, all different types of varieties of things. And we would always have sandesh for Prabhupada then, and we would keep a little bowl of sandesh so that while Prabhupada was translating, he would have a little snack. So that was Prabhupada's 4 meals that we would cook for him.
You would offer the prashadam on the table?
Yes, at that table.
Prabhupada would sit there.
He would sit there, yes.
Very lucky.
You don't offer prasadam to the teacher and bring coffee.
Excuse me? We would offer it to Prabhupada, yes. The system is you offer it to the spiritual master, and the spiritual master offers it to Krishna. One day, we were cooking here for Prabhupada, Pishima. Pishima was cooking. Pishima called me coolie. I was the coolie. So we were cooking and we made the plate, and Brahmananda came in to get the plate. And Brahmananda said to us, "Is it offered?" And Pishima looks at me, and I look at Pishima, and Pishima says, "Jai Nrsinga!" Offered. So no, we didn't make any offering. We offered it to Prabhupada, and we didn't put tulsi on the plate. We offered it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada took care of the offering. So
Prabhupada used to give
excuse me?
He used to give his Mahaprasad.
His Mahaprasadam, well, by the time it got from Prabhupada through the secretary's room, I would get the peels of the oranges, and I would get the juice of the sukta. So, no, there would be Mahaprasadam, and especially when Pishima cooked, because after Pishima cooked, then I would serve her prasadam, whatever was in the pots. And plus we had to cook for the servants. We had to make a boiled sabji. So we were busy in that kitchen. When cooking with Pishima, there was no break. We were in there from morning till night, cooking for Prabhupada, because she would make so many wonderful things for Prabhupada. Yeah. No, not in that kitchen. When the bedroom, when Prabhupada's closet was his bathroom, and half of the, it was only half built, only the front portion.
People didn't cook in this kitchen.
No, by that time, because the first time when the temple first opened, that kitchen was just a hole in the wall, didn't have any windows, it didn't have any doors. And then during those 3 months, we got it fixed up. But how did it go? I'm trying to remember when Prabhupada... No, it was the grand opening. It was the grand opening time when the kitchen wasn't fixed up. I brought in Prabhupada's breakfast one morning, and he told me to sit down. I sat down on the floor, and he said, "You have learned sufficiently now from my sister, So now you can cook independently and she can rest. So after that she would just come and tell me what she wanted me to make, because I already knew how to make her recipes. And unfortunately, there was a devotee here named Buddhimanta at the time, the original Buddhimanta. Later he died here of a brain tumor in room number 3. And Ayodhyapati Das, Bhakti Bringa Maharaj, he tells a story about when he left this world. But at that time he was a member of the Namahata party that traveled with Guru Kripa. Now Guru Kripa, although he had collected almost all the funds to build the temple, in May is a very good collection time in Japan. And he didn't want the devotees to come right from India into their big collection time. So he took the Namahata devotees back before the grand opening. He wasn't here for the grand opening. He took them back in April. But one of them didn't go back, Buddhimanta. And I didn't know anything. I was just in the kitchen. So Buddhimanta would come to, there used to be a back door. He would come to the door every day, and he was a very heavy brahmachari. He would say to me, Guru Kripa wants all the Mahaprasadam. Guru Kripa wasn't even here. You better give me all the Mahaprasadam for Guru Kripa. So I was afraid of him. I thought Guru Kripa was here. I would give him all of Prabhupada's Mahaprasadam at that time. So Pishima went, because normally Pishima would get the Mahaprasadam. Pishima went and cried to Prabhupada she wasn't getting any of his Mahaprasadam. So then Prabhupada made the rule that you can't, nobody can just take all the Mahaprasadam. You can just give a little bit to everybody. So, and then even other cooks, he would have them mix everything up so they couldn't pick and choose between the Mahaprasadam. Yeah, right. Yeah, we would have a big problem with them.
Mataji, in chapati, Prabhupada told you not to any put and salt?
Yeah, we would put salt. Yes.
And oil?
No oil.
No.
No.
Just water.
Just water. Yes. Okay. Well, there's the Srila Prabhupada. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
This is one question. I think, like, even this is regarding the Gurukul education.
Yes.
That we just heard. Like, we've heard all the time that I was in Gurukul, we heard how Prabhupada wanted all the Gurukul students to become materially educated as well, so that, like, we could extend our preaching more, even more.
You find where Prabhupada ever said it or wrote it?
No, we just heard from.
Yeah, you heard it, exactly.
Teachers, so,
Which Gurukul did you go to?
Vrindavan.
Yeah. He was there when Ananda Vrindavan Mataji was managing.
Oh, how wonderful. What is your name?
Kartik Tyagi.
Kartik?
Kartik, my surname is Tyagi.
Tyagi.
Kartik Tyagi. You did your whole education there?
Yeah.
Oh, how wonderful. Nice. Yeah.
So I just had this confusion because even now if I speak with someone, they are like, no, Prabhupada never wanted this our Gurukul to have material education.
That's right.
But we also see how he encouraged his disciples who were in the science field to go on pursue higher education, and then so like even if you are highly qualified, you kind of make more impact on the educated people, like on the educated mass. Like you go there and you kind of have some wisdom that you can give, some matter. But
Why don't
where do
you,
find your balance?
what, now that you're graduated and you were told particular things in the Gurukula, why not read what Prabhupada actually instructed about the Gurukula and then make an opinion? Okay? All right? Because what you're thinking, what you were told, might not be exactly what Prabhupada instructed. It might be, it might not be, but you can make that decision after you read all the things that Prabhupada said about how the Gurukula should be. Did you ever read a book like that? what Prabhupada actually said? Right. So maybe now, if you have time during the lockdown, I can loan you the book and you can read Prabhupada's instructions about the Gurukula. I'm not anti-Gurukula at all. I'm just repeating what Prabhupada said at the time that he established the Gurukula. Okay? Fine. So if you have I can loan you the book right now if you want. Okay? All right. You can come with me, I'll give it to you. Excuse me?